Somewhere in your house, right now, there's a cat telling you something, and you've stopped hearing it. Not because you don't care, but because it happens so constantly that it's become weather. You walk in the door and it starts, and you talk over it, and eventually you tune it out. Here's the problem with that. Buried inside all that noise, for some of you watching, is a completely different kind of meow. One that means pain, or confusion, or a body that's stopped working properly. And because it sounds like all the others, it gets ignored for months. I'll tell you exactly how to spot that one, because it comes down to a single question you can answer in about 5 seconds. Hi everyone, I'm Leo Bennett, your neighborhood cat guy. Today we're talking about the chatty cat, the one who narrates your entire morning, who yells from the next room, who has an opinion about the fridge opening and won't stop having it. I'll walk you through every reason a cat over-vocalizes, in the order you should rule them out, plus what to do about each. And I'll be honest at the end about the category nobody wants to hear about, which is the cat who does this for no discoverable reason at all, because that cat exists and I've lived with one. Quick note before we start. This is one chapter of a much bigger conversation about what your cat is trying to tell you, and I've gathered all of it into a book called The Happy Cat Manual, over at leobennettsecrets.com. If you want more happy years with your cat, go take a look. That's all. Now, let's start with the easiest one to rule out, which is simply who your cat is. Some cats are built loud, and that's the end of it. The so-called Oriental breeds are the usual suspects here, and Siamese are the most famous of all. If you've ever lived with a Siamese, you know they don't meow, they converse, with volume and conviction and no regard for the hour. That's not a behavior problem, and there's no fixing it, because it isn't broken. It's the breed. And here's what people miss. Your cat doesn't have to look Siamese to have inherited the voice. If you've got a rescue of unknown parentage who talks like she's charging by the word, there may well be an Oriental breed somewhere back in that pedigree. So the correct way, if this is your cat, is to adjust your expectations rather than your cat. Genuinely. You can manage the volume with everything else in this video, but you won't make a chatty breed into a quiet cat, and it isn't fair to try. And if you're bothered by a talkative cat, that's something to think about before you bring one home rather than after. Now, the one you have to rule out before anything else, and I mean before you consider a single behavioral explanation: medical. And here's the specific thing to look for, because this is the 5-second question I mentioned at the start. Is this new? That's it. That's the whole test. A cat who has been loud her entire life, being loud, is a cat. But a quiet cat who suddenly starts vocalizing and does it in a way she never used to is a cat reporting something. Do not pass go. Do not troubleshoot the litter box. That's a vet visit, and I'd make it a soon one. Because here's the thing that surprises people. Cats hide pain extraordinarily well, since a cat who looks weak in the wild gets picked off. So when a cat breaks that rule and starts making noise about it, that tells you something about the level of discomfort involved. It's one of the few times a cat gives you a loud, direct signal, and it gets dismissed constantly because it doesn't look like an emergency. It just looks like your cat being annoying. There are a few specific things to consider inside that medical category. First, if your cat isn't spayed or neutered, that may be your entire answer, and this is the easiest fix on the whole list. A female in heat produces that unmistakable drawn-out caterwauling, and an intact male who can smell a female will produce a range of sounds I can only describe as unsettling. Neither cat is being difficult. They're driven by hormones, giving orders your living room cannot possibly satisfy. Get them spayed or neutered, and that pressure disappears, along with the noise. Second, and this one is genuinely important if you have an older cat: cognitive decline. Cats can develop something similar to dementia as they age, and one of the most common signs is exactly this: increased vocalization, often at night, often sounding disoriented, from a cat who never did it before. If you've got a senior suddenly yowling in a dark hallway at 3 in the morning, that isn't naughtiness and it isn't loneliness. That's a cat who may be genuinely confused about where she is. And hear the good news attached to that, because people assume nothing can be done. There are medications and dietary supports for feline cognitive decline, and vets prescribe them more and more routinely. It's a conversation worth having. And beyond those two, a new vocalization can point toward things like hyperthyroidism, high blood pressure, or pain from arthritis or dental disease, all of which your vet can look for, and none of which you'll find from your couch. Right, so let's say your vet has cleared her. Now we can start doing detective work, and the first place to look is the environment. Because a lot of new vocalization is stress, and stress in cats comes from places you wouldn't expect. Have you moved recently? Has somebody new arrived? A partner, a roommate, a baby, a new pet? Have you changed your hours so the shape of her day is different? Has furniture moved? Something that reads as trivial to you can redraw the entire map for a cat, because a cat's security is built on predictability and territory. So, work backwards. If this started at a specific point, ask what else happened around then, and be generous about what counts as an event. Then you have two jobs. The first is to build a positive association with whatever changed, if it's a person. The new roommate hands out the good treats, does the play sessions, becomes the source of nice things. You're not asking your cat to accept them intellectually, you're making them profitable. The second job is to shore up her territory. Make sure her scent-soaking things are available and reachable. Her scratching posts, her preferred beds, enough litter boxes, spread around rather than clustered in one room. Cats find enormous security in laying their own scent across the important parts of their space, and a cat who feels she owns her territory is a calmer one. Now, here's the category that applies to more of you than any other, and it's the one where owners accidentally create the problem themselves: attention-seeking. And I'll be careful with the word because it sounds dismissive and shouldn't. Your cat isn't manipulating you. Your cat ran an experiment and got a result. Think about what happens. She meows. You want it to stop, so you say her name, or look at her, or sigh and pet her, or put food down, or get out a toy just to buy some quiet. Every one of those, including the exasperated ones, teaches her the same thing. This works. Noise produces the human. And she won't voluntarily abandon a strategy with that success rate. So the correct way has two halves, and the second one is the half people skip. Half one is to stop paying out. Total silence from you. Don't say her name, don't look at her, don't ask her to be quiet, don't plead, don't pet her to settle her, don't give a treat, don't get the toy out mid-meow. Nothing. As far as she's concerned, the noise now goes into a void. And be ready for it to get worse before it gets better. Because when a strategy that always worked suddenly stops, animals escalate before they give up. That's normal, temporary, and the point most people cave. Half two is the part that actually teaches her, and this is where I'd like you to focus. Reward the silence. Because it isn't enough for her to learn what doesn't work, she has to learn what does. So the moment she stops, you move. 2 or 3 seconds of quiet, then the treat, or the attention, or the play. Immediately, because timing is everything. It's the same principle as clicker training. The reward has to land right on top of the behavior you want, not 30 seconds later when she's started up again. Get that timing right and something remarkable happens over a couple of weeks. You've completely inverted the lesson. It used to be noise summons the human. Now it's quiet summons the human. Same outcome for her, entirely different route, and cats are extremely good at working out which route pays. And underneath all of that sits a structural fix that makes everything else easier, which is routine. Cats run on rhythm to a degree people genuinely underestimate. So the framework is routine, ritual, rhythm. You start doing something at the same time each day, that's a routine. Repeat it enough and it becomes a ritual, something she anticipates and relies on. And once you've got a set of rituals, her whole day has a rhythm. And that's where a huge amount of feline calm comes from. Here's why it matters for a chatty cat. Much of that demanding on and on meowing is a cat who doesn't know when the next good thing is coming, so she asks constantly, just in case. Give her set meal times and a play session at a predictable hour, and that uncertainty drops away. She stops asking because she already knows the answer. So feed proper meals at set times rather than free feeding, play at roughly the same point each day, and let the day have a shape. It does more than any single trick on this list. Which brings me to the cause that hides behind most of the others: boredom. And you should take this one seriously because a bored indoor cat has almost nothing to do and only one thing that reliably produces a reaction, and that's her voice. So translate the meowing for a moment. A lot of it is simply, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, entertain me. 3 fixes here. The first is proper interactive play, and I mean proper. Not toys scattered on the floor because those are furniture. A wand toy in your hand, moving like something alive trying to escape, letting her stalk it and chase it and actually catch it. 10 to 20 minutes until she's genuinely tired, then a meal. That completes the hunt sequence her brain runs, and it drains the tank properly. The second is cat television. Cats will spend more of their day looking out of a window than almost anything else if you let them, so let them. A perch at every window you can manage. If you can hang a bird feeder outside one, that's the jackpot, and it'll occupy her for hours. If you've got no view at all, there are entire video channels of birds and squirrels made for exactly this, and plenty of cats are riveted. And the third is food puzzles. These are feeders she has to work at to get food out of, and they're excellent for this specific problem, because they give her something to solve that has nothing whatsoever to do with you. That's the key part. Every time she solves a puzzle instead of yelling at you, the yelling gets a little less central to her day. And now the last category, and I'm going to be straight with you because I'd rather be honest than pretend I have a solution for everything. Sometimes there is no discoverable reason. You'll rule out the medical causes, you'll get her spayed, you'll find no environmental trigger, you'll stop rewarding the noise, reward the silence perfectly, build the routine, play her into exhaustion and fill every window with birds. And she will still talk. All day. At you, at the dog, at the door, at the rug, at nothing at all. I'm telling you this partly because I've lived with exactly that cat, and partly because I don't want you spending 2 years convinced you've failed at something. Some cats simply talk. I'm not even certain they always know why. It isn't distress, it isn't a deficiency in your care, it's a personality. And here's the thing I'd want you to hold on to if that's your cat. Every single tool in this video still helps, even when it doesn't cure. The routine still calms her. The play still tires her. The rewarded silence still buys you quieter stretches. You may not get a quiet cat, but you will very likely get a quieter one. And a cat whose needs are properly met is a cat with less to shout about, even if she shouts anyway. So let me pull this together, in the order you should actually work through it. First, is this new? If the answer is yes, that's a vet visit before anything else, because a cat who breaks her own rule about hiding discomfort is telling you something serious. Second, is she spayed or neutered? And is she a senior who's suddenly confused? Both treatable. Third, what changed in her world? And can you make that change profitable rather than frightening? Fourth, are you accidentally paying for the noise? And can you start paying for silence instead? Fifth, does her day have a rhythm she can rely on? And sixth, is she simply understimulated, with nothing to hunt and nothing to watch? Work down that list in order, and most people find their answer in it. And if you get to the bottom and there's nothing there, then congratulations, you have a talker, and you're in good company. One last thought, and it's a genuine one. A cat who talks to you constantly is a cat who has decided you're worth talking to. That's not nothing. Somewhere in all that noise, most of it is your cat trying to include you in her day. So tell me in the comments, how chatty is your cat? And does she have a specific meow you've learned to translate? I want to hear the strange ones. Hit like, subscribe, and pass this along to anyone living with a very talkative cat. I'm Leo Bennett, and go listen to your cat properly tonight.